Good morning, dear children. I hope you all are fine. Today we are going to start lesson 10, that is verb tenses. In this chapter, we will study about the tense, what is the tense, what are the different kinds of tenses, and what are the uses of different kinds of tenses, and how to frame the sentences. All these in detail we are going to study in this chapter. In today's class, we'll study about what is the tense, different kinds of tenses, forms of verbs, and about the simple present tense we'll study in this class. What is a tense first of all? Dear children, tense indicates the time of an action. It tells us, it expresses an action in terms of time. Tense indicates whether the action took place in the present or in the past or in the future. It tells us about the time of an action, whether it took place in the present, past or future. Basically, the tenses are divided into three parts. What are they? The first one is present tense, then past tense, and the future tense. There are basically three tenses: present tense, past tense, and the future tense. The present tense indicates an action that takes place now. Past tense indicates the action that already took place, that has already taken place sometime earlier. And the future to indicate an action that is going to take place later. So there are mainly three tenses: present tense, past tense, and future tense. Dear children, we can see the following diagram. This timeline will help us to understand the three different kinds of tenses: point A, point B, and point C. It is past, present, and future. Dear children, point A stands for the time that has already gone. Before, it means before, and which is already past, which is already gone. Present indicates, the point B indicates the present time. It means it talks about the present time, means now, something is happening now. Past indicates the action which took place before, and present indicates the action which takes place now, in the present time. And the point C indicates the time yet to come, the time yet to come in future. So it tells us about the action which will happen later. So basically there are three tenses: present tense, past tense, and future tense. My dear children, these three tenses are divided into four more categories. Each tense is divided into four more categories. Total there are 12 tenses. Let us see what are they. The present tense is divided into four categories, that is the simple, means the simple present tense, present continuous tense, then the perfect tense, and the perfect continuous tense. Perfect continuous tense. Each tense is divided into four more categories. simple present, present continuous, present perfect and present perfect continuous. The same way past tense also, simple past, past continuous tense, past perfect tense and the past perfect continuous tense. The same way future tense, it is simple future, future continuous tense, future perfect tense and the future perfect continuous tense. So dear children, we can see here there are total 12 tenses. Each tense is divided into 4 more categories. So 4 plus 4 8 plus 4 12. There are 12 tenses. And in this chapter we are going to study these different tenses. In this class in 6th standard you are going to study about the simple, continuous and perfect tenses. Now dear children, let us see the different forms of verbs in different tenses. In your book on page number 76, the table is given. How to use forms of verbs in different tenses. So let us start with present tense, the simple. For example, we'll take the verb work. We'll take the verb work. In simple present tense, either we use the base form or S or ES form of the verb according to the subject. If the subject is singular, we use S or ES form of the verb. If the subject is plural, we use the base form of the verb. In present continuous tense, we use the helping verbs is, am or are plus ing form of the verb, we use. Clear? Is, am, are plus ing form of the verb. If subject is singular, we use is. If subject is I, we use am. And if the subject is plural, we use are. So the verb will be working. Clear? And in present perfect tense, we use the helping verbs or the auxiliary verbs has or have plus third form of the verb. We use has or have plus third form of the verb and it becomes has worked or have worked. Third form of the verb, work is worked. We know the different forms of the verbs. We have already studied in the previous chapters. So once again I'll repeat. There are basically 5 forms of the verbs. First form present tense, second form past tense, third form past participle. There is S or ES form of the verb and ing form of the verb. Ing form of the verb we always use in the continuous tenses. Clear? In all the continuous tenses we use ing form of the verb. And S or ES form of the verb we use in simple present tense, we use S or ES form according to the subject. If the subject is singular, then only we use it. If the subject is plural, we use base form of the verb in simple present tense. And dear children, in all the perfect tenses, we use the third form of the verb along with the helping verbs has or have. In present tense, in present perfect tense with has or have, we use the third form of the verb. Now let us see the verb in simple past tense, the form of verb in simple past tense. In simple past tense, we use the second form of the verb, that is the past tense form of the verb. It is also called the second form of the verb. And for the verb work, the second form of the verb is worked. Whether the subject is singular or plural, in simple past tense we use the second form of the verb. In past continuous tense, dear children, in past continuous tense we use the helping verbs was or were plus ing form of the verb. If the subject is singular, we use was. If the subject is plural, we use were and ing form of the verb. Already I told you, in all the continuous tenses we use ing form of the verb. And in the past perfect tense we use the helping verb had plus third form of the verb. Dear children, whether the subject is singular or plural, we use the helping verb had in past perfect tense and third form of the verb, the main verb in its third form. Now, let us see simple future tense. In simple future tense, we use shall or will. Shall or will plus base form of the verb. Base form of the verb. Shall or will. Usually we use shall with I and we. And will we can use with I, we and all the subjects. So, shall or will plus base form of the verb we use in simple future tense. And in future continuous tense we use shall or will plus be plus ing form of the verb. Shall be working, will be working. In future continuous tense we use shall or will plus be plus ing form of the verb. And in future continuous tense we use shall or will plus have plus third form of the verb. We use shall or will plus have plus third form of the verb. Dear children, this table tells us the different forms of verbs in different tenses. Once again we'll revise. In simple present tense, either we use the base form or S or ES form. If the subject is singular, we use S or ES form. If the subject is plural, we use base form. And then in present continuous tense, we use is, am, are according to the subject and ing form of the main verb. Then in present perfect tense, we use has or have as helping verbs and third form of the verb. Then in past tense, in simple past tense, we use second form of the verb, whether the subject is singular or plural. And in past continuous tense, we use was or were plus ing form of the verb. Was or were we use according to the subject. If the subject is singular in number, we use was. If the subject is plural in number, we use were. And in past perfect tense, we use the helping verb had plus third form of the verb. Had we use whether the subject is singular or plural in both the cases. In future, simple future tense, we use shall or will plus base form of the verb. In future continuous, we use shall or will plus be plus ing form of the verb. And in future perfect, we use shall or will plus have plus third form of the verb. Dear children, in the previous chapter, already we have studied the different forms of auxiliary verbs or helping verbs. These are the be verbs, have verbs and do verbs. Be verbs are is, am, are. Once again we'll revise. Be verbs are be verbs are is, am, are, was or were. We have studied their different uses. And have verbs are, the forms of have verbs are have, has or had. And the forms of do verbs are do, does or did. We have already studied this in the previous chapter. If you can go through page number 70 and 71. The clear table is given about these different forms of verbs and how to use them. Now, dear children, we'll study simple present tense. About the simple present tense we are going to study in this chapter. Dear children, in simple present tense simple present tense can be used in various types of sentences. We know the different types of sentences are affirmative sentence, negative sentence or interrogative sentence. How to frame the sentences in simple present tense? What is the structure of different sentences? First of all, we'll study about affirmative sentence. Affirmative sentence. Affirmative sentences are also called the positive sentences. What is the structure? The structure is subject plus verb plus object or complement. Now, dear children, if the subject is I, we, you, they or any plural subject, if the subject is I, we, you, they or any plural subject, we use base form of the verb. For example, we take the verb watch. We use base form of the verb. If the subject is I, we, you, they or any plural subject, we use base form of the verb. Then comes the object or complement. So, the sentence can be I watch television. I watch television. If the subject is I, we, you, they or any plural subject, we use base form of the verb. And dear children, if the subject is she, he or any singular subject, we use S or ES form of the verb. We use S or ES form of the verb, and that is watches plus the object television. Clear? So, the structure of the affirmative sentence in simple present tense is subject plus verb and object. Your verb can be either base form of the verb or S or ES form of the verb according to the subject. If the subject is I, we, you, they or any plural subject, we use base form of the verb. And if subject is she, he or any singular subject, we use S or ES form of the verb. Now, let us see how to make negative sentences in simple present tense. The structure is subject plus negative verb, the word of negation, and then the verb in its base form, and then the object. Dear children, if the subject is, and now for making negative sentence, we use the form of do verb. In present tense it is present, so do or does we use. plus the word of negation, that is not. Do and does we use according to the subject. If our subject is I, we, you, they, or any plural subject, we use do. The form of do verb, that is do, plus the word of negation not, do not, plus the verb in its base form. Base form of the verb we use, that is watch, I do not watch, plus the object. Clear? In negative sentence, if the subject is I, we, you, they, or any plural subject, we use do plus the word of negation not and verb in its base form. And dear children, if the subject is she, he, or any singular subject, we use does. We use does. And then the word of negation not, does not, plus the verb in its base form, then the object or the complement. Clear? So negative sentence, the structure of negative sentence in simple present tense is subject, negative form, verb in its base form, and then the object. If the subject is I, we, you, they, or any plural subject, we use the form of do verb, do plus the word of negation not and the verb in its base form. And if the subject is she, he, or any singular subject, we use the form of do verb, that is does, plus the word of negation not and the verb in its base form. Now dear children, let's see how to frame interrogative sentences in simple present tense. Interrogative sentences can be of two types. First one is yes no type and the second one is WH word. The question whose answers usually come in yes no are called yes no type question, and the questions which are beginning with WH words like who, when, whom, what, why, where, all these are WH words. So let us see the structure of yes no type question first. First of all comes the do form of verbs. Do verbs plus the subject and the verb in its base form, and then comes the object. Dear children, here also for making question do or does we use according to the subject. If your subject is I, we, you, they, or any plural subject, we use do. The sentence begins with the helping verb. Do plus the subject plus the verb in its base form. Do I watch television? Is that clear? We begin our sentence with the helping verb. Do or does in present tense according to the subject. And dear children, if our subject is she, he, or any singular subject, we use does. Does she watch? The verb in its base form, and then comes the object. Clear? This is about interrogative sentence, the structure of interrogative sentence. Which kind of interrogative? It is yes no type question. First of all comes the form of do verb, then comes subject followed by the verb in its base form, and then comes the object. Now let us see how to frame interrogative sentence. Which kind of WH question? How to make WH question? What is the structure? For making WH question, first of all we use WH word. I already told WH words are like why, when, where, whom. All these are WH words. WH word plus do or does. the helping verb do or does according to the subject, and then the verb in its base form, and then comes the object. Let us see the example. Why, WH word why, do, the subject can be I, we, you, they, or any plural subject. And then we use the verb in its base form, and then comes the object. Why do I watch television? And as it is interrogative sentence, we put question mark at the end. And let us see another example. Why, if the subject is he, she, or any plural singular subject, we use does, and the verb in its base form plus the object, and at last the question mark. Why does he watch television? Why does he watch television? So this is the structure of different kinds of sentences, how to frame affirmative, negative and interrogative sentences in simple present tense we have learned. So I think this much is enough for today's class. And dear children, it is very important. If we know the perfect English, if we want to speak correctly, we should learn tenses in a proper way. We should learn the different forms of verbs. In which tense, which form of the verb do we use, that we should learn. So the table which is given on page number 76, it is very important. Please go through this table again and learn the different forms of verbs and revise the structure, how to frame the sentences, simple present tense sentences in affirmative sentence, negative and interrogative sentences. Thank you.